Hello, chat. It is the end of my workday today, but it's the beginning of the pod. Hello, 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 hello. Hope everyone's well. Weather has been very odd this past week here in Cincinnati, so as much as I like a variety in my weather, this is a little much. Some days have been, in the 80s. Today, it will be between 30 and 50. It'll get down pretty cold tonight. So, flipping between the heater and the AC has been a little odd from day to day, but suppose that is, the weather we're in right now. It unseasonably warm in Arizona when I was there, and now I guess this is kind of seasonably correct. April, not exactly too hot, not exactly too cold in aggregate, but day to day it's been a little chilly, so at least today. So anyway, hello all. Walking around the park. It's an away series. We are in Miami right now, but boys will be back here end of the week, and trying to get a couple of these in before they get back. That way I could just walk around walk around unimpeded. So, with all that said, lots of questions today. I love that people are asking tons and tons of questions right now. Keep them coming. I will try to get to a good amount of them right now. I'll try to start with some rapid fire, I guess. We'll do some rapid fire questions first. Someone asked about the 999. That has been a popular feature at many parks this year. For those unfamiliar, the 999 is over the course of 9 innings, which is, one baseball game. Over the course of 9 innings, you have to eat 9 hot dogs and drink 9 beers. So that is the goal. Obviously, 9 hot dogs for anyone, it sounds like a lot. 9 beers on top of that. Not a lot of people can make it past, 3 or so beers. So 9 beers in a little over 2 hours is, I don't know, kind of a lot. But a lot of the marketing gimmicks around it right now, they are, as one would, you're taking 9 smaller drinks of beer and 9 smaller hot dogs, mainly because, if you actually paid full price for 9 full hot dogs, 9 full beers at a ball game, that's like a $200+ some parks, If you think hot dog alone, say it's $5, $45 right there, and then a beer, 9 of them. If you're talking cheap beer, that's still gonna be $10 a beer. So that's $90 there. But if you're talking about slightly nicer beer, it could be, for some parks, as much as $15 to $20. So you could be talking about a good amount of money for doing the 999 if you do it the real way, so to say. But for some of the marketed ways that some parks are doing, it is a little more cost effective, a lot less beer, but also still a lot of food. It's a lot of food. So, so 999, that exists. Would I do it? I mean, probably not, to be honest. I'm not a big. I know, like, my friends and I, when we were all growing up through our 20s, you know, we were very interested in beer. Some of us worked at breweries. We all learned a lot about beer. Some made beer. My preferences have moved away from beer, more towards wine. But even wine these days, alcohol in general, I don't know. I don't drink a ton of it. So I don't think if challenged, I don't think I would be last on the list to take up a 999 challenge. It's a lot of food, a lot of beer. So, someone asked about Teamworks and like what this means now that they've acquired Pro Football Focus. Like, what is the, what is the angle? Now, I think it's important to know that, for Teamworks, it is more, their angle is more than just like being a sports communication facilitator, right? So, for those unfamiliar, Teamworks is a company that initially was a platform for messaging. So they had an ability to message internally, not dissimilar from like, say, Slack, but you're able to, get people's cell phone numbers, deliver messages both through an app, also through cell phone. Just comprehensive messaging service with security, and also the ability to send out files or whatnot through the messaging service. So makes a lot of sense, like why teams or enterprises would want this kind of system. It's not dissimilar from Slack. It's not dissimilar from any other messaging system. However, they really tried to hone in on the sports side of things. So they've made several different acquisitions. They acquired Zealous, I think a year or so ago. That was their big acquisition. So Zealous being a data analytics platform, they were doing some data analytics related work. Then you had, and of course, like Zealous themselves had acquired different smaller analytics platforms, or were able to onboard people in different sports to broaden their sports analytics portfolio. Shout out to my dude Corey Jez. His Tor IQ platform was acquired by Zealous several years ago. Now Zealous all packaged up into Teamworks. So this isn't, when that happened, a lot of people were like, why would the communication platform want to acquire the data science, sports analytics platform when there's not a ton of overlap between the two functions? And PFF was a good example of what they're ultimately trying to do, which is, in a world where you're not just trying to acquire all the things that are similar to you, acquire all the things that are dissimilar to you, if you're trying to force that kind of product. So obviously, the messaging side down, the communication side of the business down, but having more offerings in terms of tools is something that they don't have to go out and build on their own. They could just acquire companies like Zealous, like PFF, to offer some sort of analytics platform, right? So the bigger angle here, a lot of people were like, well, if pro teams are going to do this, wouldn't this mean that all pro teams are going to have the same stuff? Like, what differentiates one pro team from another? Well, you're right if you believe in the idea that Teamworks is ultimately going to be providing all this stuff outward to professional teams. But as we all know, professional teams tend to have their own internal stuff, mainly because they have full-time people dedicated to it. They have access to data that Teamworks doesn't have access to, etc., etc. So, if it's not targeting sports teams, then who is it targeting? Well, it's targeting collegiate or amateur teams who don't have access to any of this stuff. So imagine, you're a D1 NCAA school, and you might not be, the top of your conference, but if you're trying to have a competitive program, then what are things that you can offer that other teams can't? Well, one thing that could differentiate you is the use of analytics. Wake Forest is a great example of a program that went from being just another D1 school to a place where people, particularly pitchers, go to, transfer to, if they want to improve on their pitching mechanics because of their biomechanics lab that's so affiliated and attached to their baseball program. Not dissimilarly, you have schools like LSU, Iowa, who, both these schools, definitely different, LSU being a powerhouse, Iowa being good, but many people don't necessarily associate them with the SEC elite. And these schools also have these very strong analytics backings in their program. So if a team that wants to start competing on the tech side, if they want to get up to date faster, it's possible to buy into now the Teamworks platform and have all of these types of offerings that, a gigantic school like a Wake Forest, a Iowa, LSU, that they would ultimately have. And it might not be the full-fledged thing that these schools have, but maybe it's a large portion of it, right? Just being ahead of other schools, being able to utilize the data that's available to improve, whether it's pitching or game planning or whatever, it can help a ton. So on one side, the target demographic might not be professional sports teams. It's a possible client, but it's probably not the client that they're ultimately trying to pitch to. And on the other side, if we're thinking about just baseball, there are only 30 professional baseball teams, whereas there's hundreds and hundreds of D1 athletic teams, let alone the hundreds of D2, the hundreds of D3 athletic teams. And then you also have your NAIA, you have all your independent leagues, you have junior colleges, you have academies that are sports focused like IMG. You have a lot of different avenues on a magnitude order larger than the 30 professional baseball teams in America. So ultimately, the roadmap isn't really oh, like let's make a platform, buy out all these different companies, and like have this one gigantic internal system for professional teams, but rather on the other side of the fence, like let's have all the things that many, if not the majority of big schools have in terms of dashboards, analytics, etc., and then be able to package that into something that smaller schools or less competitive schools might have. So that would be the big pipeline for what Teamworks might be actually like looking towards right now. So PFF makes a lot of sense just in the portfolio, especially since Zealous made sense in the portfolio before. And if you follow the pipeline of like many sports and sports that are underserved by, leveraging their analytics, then a messaging app that's a portal for all of this stuff kind of makes a lot more sense. So, okay, so that's PFF. Let's see. There's a bunch of other questions, and I'm like kind of ahead of schedule, so this is good. Next question. Someone asked about dashboards, like what makes a dashboard good? So a dashboard, right, if you're thinking like a custom dashboard or, Power BI or Tableau type of dashboards, they are kind of a dime a dozen, right? Like there's a flavor to them. You're able to have like several different types of widgets that will display some sort of metric, and you can combine multiple metrics to make scatter plots, line plots, whatever. And the benefit of dashboards that are customizable at the individual level is people can see what's most important to them visually and get a lot of information quickly. The con to this is if everyone is looking at something slightly differently, then the interpretation might be slightly different, even though it's all the same data. So when it comes to like what makes good effective dashboards, you do have to balance first, like, does something need a dashboard, right? So let's think of a problem, right? If your problem is like, we want a game report. Like at the end of the game, all the data is in. Now we just want a report of like each player, a point on a chart. How did they do compared to expectations? How well did they do compared to our models, compared to what the game state was presenting? All of these different things about like after the game, what is a breakdown of our performance? Okay. If you play video games, this is no different than like the end screen with all the stats. If you're playing like a game like Call of Duty or something, like your kill to death ratio, the amount of objectives you were able to like unlock or do, or whatever events that count towards points, all of these different things, right? Like you could have that same thing, which they do, like traditionally it's the box score, but you could do it even more elaborately, right? Like internal metrics and stats over time and comparisons to other teammates or other players, comparisons to league averages, etc. So you can imagine like a dashboard for the pitching group, right? All the pitchers who played, the pitching coaches, might be slightly different than a dashboard for the hitting group, where offense is really important, positional play, so like defense, how many plays were made in the outfield, in the infield, were the right relay people hit, were there runs saved because of certain defensive plays, etc. Right? So when we think about dashboards, like what would a pitching coach want to see in their dashboard would be like a very good step one, right? Like they want to see all the regular stuff that they're used to, but is it possible you could start funneling in internal metrics that might have larger signal, they're more rich, they incorporate more things that event-related data might not have, right? Like you might have like pitches thrown and the type of pitch, but do you have like biomechanical flags? Do you have anything related to do with timing between pitches? Stuff that isn't necessarily tracked, but can provide signal in terms of other things. The performance related to the player, maybe more on like a sports science level, or maybe on a deeper, mechanical change level. So you do have like ways to present this information, but should they be in a dashboard, right? Did you want someone who has access to all this information being able to change what certain things do, how certain things correlate with other things? I once put together a dashboard that was able to be customizable, and someone was showing off their dashboard to me because they were like, hey, is it possible to introduce this graph, which we don't have available in like the custom widget field? So I looked at their dashboard, and one thing that they did, which was confusing to me when I first looked at it, was like they had what I thought was like a time series thing. So they had like dates along the x-axis, and then they had some value metric on y. Let's say it's like, let's say it's pitch velocity. So how fast a pitcher's throwing a ball. And I was like, okay, well, maybe they're looking at this like in terms of fatigue, but it was a scatter plot. It wasn't a line plot. So I asked him like, oh, this thing that you have, why is it, why are you looking at it in the scatter plot view? And they were like, oh, well, I want to see how much this correlates over time. And I was like, well, are you looking at like negative trends, or are you looking at positive trends, or like what's the flag that you're looking for? And they said, oh, well, if someone has a negative trend, then I know that like we need to do X, Y, and Z. If someone has a positive trend, then I know we need to do A, B, and C. And this wasn't a pitching, this is like I'm making up the data, I'm making up the plot, but this is a conversation I had with someone. And I was like, oh, well, isn't the assumption that over time the trend is always going to be negative? And they were like, is that true? I'm like, oh, okay. I don't think dashboards are going to help with these like fundamental educational pieces, right? Where people are correlating things that maybe shouldn't necessarily be correlated, but rather like we need to do more education in order for them to utilize more of the metrics that are available to them, which kind of goes without saying a little here, but you know, when you don't know enough to appreciate something like a dashboard, then it makes the dashboard a little less useful. Kind of like if you don't know enough about like food, or if you don't appreciate food enough, then going to like a Michelin star restaurant is a little lost on you, you know? Or like wine tasting, like the differences between good and bad wine is very coarse. Like, there isn't much nuance. Same with beer, or same with like cars. Like, the difference between driving a really nice car versus a okay car might not be that different. In fact, at times, it might actually be more frustrating. Like, you're driving a Ferrari and there's no cup holders. Like, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't be drinking beverages in your really, really expensive, nice Ferrari. But to people who are unfamiliar with like a luxury car experience or brand, they wouldn't be able to appreciate stuff like the interior itself is worth more than several cars combined, you know? So it's possible that dashboards are along the same lines, that everyone would love to have a Ferrari. Everyone would love to have a Bugatti, a McLaren. Just being able to have it as something that you could say you have, it's nice, but are you utilizing whatever you have for what it's worth? And if the answer is like, well, I just like having it to say I have it, that's a big waste, right? Like, some people do that, but particularly like in luxury things. But when we're talking about work product, if you just want a dashboard because you saw someone else with a dashboard, well, that's a lot of work for someone else to put together all of this stuff. So unless you have a particular use case for whatever you're doing or whatever you're requesting, probably it might not be effective to utilize a dashboard or something like a dashboard if there isn't a huge use case. This is where, like, when someone asks, like, is there an effective way to put together X? The number one answer I'll always have is, well, does X serve purpose Y? Because if it doesn't, then what solves purpose Y? You know, like, it might not be a dashboard. It might not even be data visualization. There have been many times in my career where some people think they need a model or a neural net that does X, Y, and Z, and really what they needed was like someone to walk them through what they currently have. And they're like, oh, so that's all right here. And like, if you've ever heard that before from someone where you walk them through something and they're like, oh, that's what this means, or that's what this tells me. Those light bulb moments are a lot more valuable than creating a new toy. So when it comes to dashboards, there are definitely places for them. They're definitely like useful tools, but you know, sometimes people need, you know, just scissors. Some people really need a chainsaw. And if someone doesn't understand the use case for either, then it's probably better to give them the scissors until they realize why the scissors are either not useful or they need something bigger than that. So I always try to level set. Whenever you're trying to request for something new, whenever you're trying to utilize something like a dashboard, do you really need one? But on top of that, if you do need it, what specifically do you need in it? So, man, I thought we were on a good pace, but now I got two more and we're running out of time. I'll save these two for tomorrow. I'll save these two, or not tomorrow, for the next pod. I'll save these two, but I'm gonna call it here, chat. I'll do another one very soon, though. And I do appreciate all the questions. Please post more. Ask them in the comments. If you want me to cover any certain topics, let me know. Also, let me know in the Discord. in the Yap Wan Questions channel. Always happy to answer all your questions. But I've been happy with all the responses, so keep them up and I will keep on podding. And that's all the Yap today. It's cold. My ears are cold. The sun feels awesome. But my ears, it's like breezy and they're cold. So I gotta go home, do chores. I gotta go to the grocery store actually. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna go do that, but I'll catch y'all later. Bye.